All right, let's talk about the Alfarad A8, a 300cc water-cooled, 5-speed, 4-stroke engine motorcycle. It is actually a very nice and beautiful motorcycle you get for a very cheap price. I paid mine 1,600 euros, if I'm not mistaken. And I think for that money, I have a lot of fun. It is an amazing motorcycle for a beginner rider and for a occasional rider. If you want to do like really pro riding and you want to really rip that thing apart as a professional one, it would be very low quality for that, because it is not a thing that you really have to beat and really abuse, because then it will be wearing out rather quickly. But for me, as a occasional rider in the beautiful outdoors, it is actually a very pleasant motorcycle, and you get quite a lot for that money. For 1,600 euros that I paid, it is pretty impressive what you get. You get adjustable suspension front and back. You get upside down forks in the front. You get disc brakes all around. You get water cooling as well. It is a very pleasant motorcycle. Yeah, this is actually a positive note. One thing is that it sounds amazing. The exhaust note is actually very nice. It's very loud. It is actually tuned relatively rich, which means when you go off the gas and you have a high RPM, it really pops, and it really it has a very nice soundtrack to it. Sadly, this drone doesn't really record sound that well. I also try to record with my phone in the mount, but it's vibrating too much and in my pocket and everything, so I don't have a clear sound bite to share with you. But you have to take my word for it. It is sounding pretty amazing. It's also tuned very rich, so when you go off the gas on a high RPM, the popping and the banging, for me as a petrol head, it is actually a very nice experience. For that money, I'm pretty surprised in this day and age of in Europe, you're able to build and you get so much bike for that price, 1,600 euros. Yeah, what you have is it's definitely decent for that money, of course. But don't forget that for 1,600 euros you have a electrical bicycle from Decathlon. So compared to that, it is pretty fucking amazing. But compared to like a decent Honda WX or Honda CRF or a Yamaha WX or what's the DR7 or DR what the DR motorcycle? Why is it from Suzuki or Kawasaki? I forgot. Like these kind of bikes, they are of course a different kind of leak, and you started to notice relatively quickly. Let's say like the build quality. If you look closer, of course there's a very big difference. Also the oil intervals of this engine, it is 15 hours. So every 15 hours the manufacturer suggests you should change your oil, which is yeah, it's pretty excessive, to be honest. I'm usually driving normal road bikes, and every 15 hours, that's that's intense. This bike actually has an oil filter, so you have a filter. It's a very small, cheap filter, easy to replace. Also, the oil change is actually very easy to do. So yeah, I do, of course. I do have a question for the watcher and the listener. Do you guys know about the airbox? Because it's like an airbox and the air filter over the airbox, but it's not very clear or I forgot to check if it actually comes wet and if you should wet it, like if you should oil the air filter or if it's a dry air filter, because I think, but I might be mistaken, that I got it dry and I'm not really sure I have to soak it in that oil that I soak other air filters in, because I'm not really sure that's actually a good thing. So please, if you know, let me know. What I find very impressive is that you get very rugged tires, which are very good off-road. I have also different bikes which comes with different kind of semi-road and semi-off-road tires, but these are really off-road tires. They're nylon based, so they're not good in the wet on the street. Don't do it on the wet on the street. You don't even have a tail light. You cannot legally register this bike on the road. So they give you the right tires, off-road tire, a very rough off-road tire. And I'm actually very surprised that that the tire is that good. That good in, of course, his task being off-road. So compared to other bikes I drive, we have like semi off-road tires, so semi on-road and off-road tires, and these tires are clearly way more grippable. That's a way strange way of saying it, but they're very good at the keeping the grip off road. They really handle rough terrain as they should, which is very pleasant. And also because the set of tires costs you easily 200 euros these days, so to have the decent tire for the decent for the right drive, it's actually what you want. I'm very happy with that. What's also very nice that this bike is a copy. I have actually no idea which copy this is of a different bike, but the geometry of this bike is correct. Like I had an older bike, a bike from the end of the 90s, actually Husqvarna, which I sold, but you can really feel the difference, like the evolvement in technology of 20 years, of course, but still you really feel it in the cheap bike. Like the second-hand Husqvarna was more expensive than this bike new, but with this bike new you have way better technology, and also you notice that the way that it's handled and tuned, and the way that it's set up, it's better. It's nicer to drive, it's looser to drive, it feels more nimble, it accelerates quickly. The 300cc electrical start, which I have to add, of course, that's very important. It is a pleasant to drive. It's really nice to do so. You have the ability to drive everywhere in the dirt, but the power really compensates for the size of the wheels. And let's talk about the A7 later, which is the cheaper, or the model that is being sold the most on the internet right now. But yeah, so this is the A8. It's the 300cc version, which is in my eyes a way better bike. You have way more power, which is very pleasant for a bike that size, because it is a relatively big bike. But the A7, the mostly sold, as far as I can see right now, of course, on Amazon, is the A7, Alfarad A7. And that is, if I'm not mistaken, because I have to compare it better, but it looks like to be the same bike as this one, but without water cooling and without a 300cc engine. And my friend bought a few of them, and he asked me to also build them, because when you buy these bikes, you get them on a crate, which is actually a nice experience. I think you receive them packed in a crate, and you have to build them yourself. And these bikes, they are the same size, so they're relatively large bikes. But I noticed that the A7 has a 250cc also electrical start engine, but it's not a 300cc. And having a 300cc, that's actually making the difference, because big bikes, and definitely the big wheels, and also big sprockets, that's very important. Maybe they're using the wrong sprockets. You need a certain kind of engine or a certain kind of sprocket or wheel to have the right power to be able to to rip to rip hard. And I noticed that with the A7 it was, in my eyes, a bit underpowered. So I also have the R6, which I think is the same engine as the A7, but the R6 has smaller wheels, so it's a little bit smaller engine. Smaller motorbike, and it is therefore nicer to drive, because the engine doesn't have to work that hard to turning the wheels. So you have a better kind of power to size ratio than you have with the A7. So for me, when driving the A7, I also drove in the wild, I had the feeling that it was slightly underpowered because the ratios were a bit wrong. So I think, and I'm pretty sure that the engine, the 250cc engine, is a copy of the Honda engine, a Japanese Honda engine from back in the war, actually, 250cc. But it's a copy, of course. It's a cheap copy. And it gives you a certain kind of power, but there is still some to be desired. Let's also talk about the Dji Neo 2, which is used to film these images right now. And its ability to actually follow the motorcycle. Of course, it's not made to follow the motorcycle, so it's clear you have to drive relatively slowly. I think it can only follow you up to 35 kilometers an hour or something. It says it can fly 50 kilometers an hour, but it's not able at all to follow you at that speeds. So you have to drive more slowly, and it avoids most of the obstacles. It is amazing that it's able to do this, to fly around things and to see and to anticipate, but often it also hits things. So it misses a lot of stuff, and it's able to be used in different kind of sports. But the sad thing is that it's not 100% working. And with automation, when something is not working 100%, then you have to go get it again, and like the impact is pretty intense. So if you use it for skiing, I tried to use it and it stopped following me. Yeah, try to ski back up to the mountain. That's pretty difficult. Also here, if you're driving in nature and it loses you or it crashes into a tree, which it does, then it's not a joke finding it back, and that's a bit sad about this drone. But apart from that, it is pretty amazing, the thing that it can do, and also the fact that you don't need a remote control. That is pretty amazing for that price point. About 200 euros without remotes, about 400 euros with remote and extra batteries. It is actually, it's pretty impressive to see how far we come with this kind of technology. And it's nice to have this thing in your back and to film this kind of images and to make this kind of memories. So I'm also very happy with that purchase, to be honest. But you have to know its limits, and don't only believe the selling points that they give you on the videos. That's actually why I make these kind of videos, to have to have some truth.